Now, the inspiration for this third debate comes from one of Vicky's recent LinkedIn posts. Let me read to you what she wrote. When your current employer suddenly finds a budget to keep you. The post was, by the way, accompanied. It was actually, I think, a share from a different post, right, Vicky? Mm-hmm. Yeah, accompanied with your tech, which I thought was really nice. So I would definitely invite everybody listening to check it out and to check both Vicky's and Christine's LinkedIn out as well. All right. Why does it sometimes take the threat of leaving for employers to recognize an employee's value? Wouldn't it be better to proactively engage, reward, and develop your team before they start looking elsewhere? Once your employee is looking, you've potentially lost them. Just like in a relationship. You can't just make a one-off change and hope it retains them. There's got to be more on offer. Coming back to one of my own former employers, this is me, Neelie, I remember my manager straight up telling me that if I wanted a raise after several years in the company, I should go out and interview elsewhere and come back with an offer from the competition. While this may not be common practice, it is also not an uncommon situation in the world of work. Now, all that brings us to our final statement of today. Top performers should leave their employer to get better compensation. All right. Top performers should leave their employer to get better compensation. Christine, I'll start with you for this one. Do you vote yes or no, or something in between?
Yes.
All right. Vicky?
Surprisingly, I vote no.
Oh, this is interesting. I'm loving it. Okay, Christine, please tell us why you voted yes.
Well, I guess in the perfect life, it's better if a manager sees what kind of value he has in you or us and develops us and raises us. But that's the perfect life we don't have. And I guess leaving a company, I had some, how would you say, we have some boomerang hiring. So people would leave the company, gain experience, have more salary, and then come back with a higher salary. But they also brought lots of experience with them in their backpack. So I think it's reality that out of the regular company, you earn more money, but you take a risk. I mean, it's only fair to get more money because you risk to be fired, or if you discover it's a mismatch. We have to face reality that if you are with your company more than 25 years, you are in the performance and salary plan, and the company or HR doesn't jump out of it. That's the way it is. It's a pity, but it's the way it is. And therefore, changing a company, getting more experience, that's my vote. And you can only grow within that.
Interesting. I like also how everything is linked, because this reminds me of the discussion we just had about the PIP, saying it could be potentially a great tool, but the reality is that it isn't. And you're basically saying the same thing, but now for people getting a salary raise. Interesting. All right, but Vicky, let us hear from you, because you voted no.
I voted no. So I think, to back that up, I think you need to leverage first and then decide if you need to leave. I'll share an anecdote from early on in my HR career. I worked for an employer, and I was the sole HR business partner in the business. The business grew, and we actually took on another person, a peer to my role. I'd taken on more responsibility, trained this other person, and my salary was quite low. So I approached my manager, put a business case forward, et cetera, and I asked for a raise. It was roughly about 35% of my salary, which is significant. But again, my salary was very, very low. And what I was asking for was on par with the new recruit that had come on board. So my manager never really came back to me. I do a weekly check-in saying, look, where's this at? What's my potential? Where's this going? It was very structured. It wasn't casual hallway conversations. It was proper meetings. And I'd always get a blow off of, I haven't looked at it yet, or the CEO hasn't looked yet. I'll come back to you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And probably about 2 months had gone past. I already let it go. I just thought this is not going anywhere. And I had my manager approach me some 2 months later, and they said, listen, I've looked at it. I've reached out to my friend who is an owner of a recruitment agency, and unfortunately I can't review your salary because I asked, and these words stick with me for the last 15 years, I can't review your salary because the cost to replace you is exactly what you're getting right now. And I was gobsmacked. It was just so disappointing to hear that terminology being used, the cost to replace you, when I was asking for a pay increase. So naturally I went, okay, well, this is not going anywhere. I applied for another role, got in another organisation, got the salary I wanted, and I was working through my notice period. So I had several weeks of a notice period. And lo and behold, I see online this recruitment agency advertising for my replacement position for the salary that I asked for. So I promised myself, so going back to these conversations we've just had about clear, transparent conversations with your staff member, whether it's something they don't want to hear, something they want to hear, or whatever the case is, I promised myself that whenever I would start manage people, that if I could not give them something they wanted, I would be open and transparent about why they wanted to get something, or provide a business case around it. So it just really, really, really stuck with me. So again, I couldn't get the salary I wanted. I leveraged the opportunity and decided to go. So I think in those instances, you should be looking to go. But I think there's other things as well that you should be looking at. So not just from a financial compensation perspective, but also what's all the non-monetary benefits. So what are your flex work arrangements? What are your other benefits? Health insurance, working from home arrangements, childcare support, et cetera, et cetera. A recent role that I had prior to starting up Agile HR, I'd only been with the company for about 12 months. And 12 months in, unfortunately, my mum became very unwell, and she went through a myriad of illnesses and got to a stage I had to place her into aged care. And I spoke to my employer because I didn't really know how this would look. I was in a sole HR function, and my employer and also the directors just said, Vic, do what you want, work the hours you need, work how you want, clock in at night, just keep us up to date, whatever works for you till you settle, you know what's going on, and you've got things under control. And it came through to a pay review time. I didn't even ask for a pay increase. I was not looking for a pay increase because the support I got from that company from a non-financial perspective, I probably wouldn't get anywhere else. It was just so genuine and heartwarming. So it made me stay, even though my salary wasn't fantastic. It was one of those jobs I took after COVID when we were all exhausted and wanted to take a step back and get away from the big corporate world. So I think at the end of the day, you need to know your worth and not settle for less when you go into a role. Absolutely, but also look at the non-money bags value of what you're getting in your position before you look elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that's some valid points as well. Christine, did you want to react to that?
Well, what you told us, Vicky, is very impressive, and I totally agree. It's not only the money; it's also the culture, the non-monetary benefits which count. Because and also study proof that money is important, but to a certain level, and then you're looking for more than that. You're looking for the sense, for the human touch, for whatever. The company is more than the money they pay you. I totally agree.
Nice. I think that's also a really nice ending to this third. Well, I'm not sure if we can call it a debate, but I think there was definitely some very valid points. I would also say, to wrap up this one, that coming back to the statement, we sort of have a consensus on the fact that first try to leverage, indeed. If that doesn't work, then yes, definitely leave and go elsewhere. And I think we also maybe agree on the fact that, unfortunately, often the reality is that you won't miraculously necessarily get the raise that you're hoping for. And you know what? Something I like to add to that as well, and this is what you did actually in your story, Vicky. I do think that each of us, if we are working for an organization, we do have our own responsibility as well. Meaning that if I want a raise, then it's my responsibility to actually go to my manager and talk with my manager about that, and also present my case, indeed, as Vicky did in her story, as to why I think I deserve a raise. I know that in many countries here in Europe, I don't know what it's like in Australia, but in Europe, in certain, especially if you're working in the public sector, I think that a raise is just a given every single year. You know that you're going to get a raise. But if you're working in a company where that is not the case, I mean, it's up to you. If you want a raise, then you should make the case for it and ask for that, because I mean, after all, a business is a business, and they're not most of those are not necessarily going to say, "Hey, you're such a nice person, here's a raise." That's just not how it works most of the time. Even though we might want that, I don't think it's the case. Anyhow, with that, I have one last segment. That is something that we're doing now in season 3, and this is the HR dilemma. So I'm just going to, it's very brief. I think it's like 2 sentences, and then I would love to hear your take on it. So here we have the HR dilemma for this episode. We have a situation where there is an employee who is very often making personal phone calls during their working hours, and it has an impact on the rest of the team and also on their productivity. Now, from an HR perspective, how can you actually raise this topic or talk about this without violating the employee's privacy? That's the word that I was looking for. All right, so this is the dilemma. Somebody is obviously making a lot of personal phone calls. The team is being impacted. Sorry, that's the drilling. The team is being impacted and the productivity is being impacted. How do you deal with this kind of situation? I don't know who wants to go first, and I'm going to switch my microphone off.
I'm happy to make a comment on that one because it's easy for me. I've worked in most organisations where there's actually a policy around mobile phone use, and that is no mobile phone use because it's all customer facing. So that's a very easy way out for me to make a comment on that one. But very similarly, in the same organisations with a mobile phone policy, I've had people that take very long bathroom breaks because they're taking their phone into the bathroom to go make that phone call. So it causes another dilemma on top of the dilemma as to why you're asking an employee why they're taking 20 minutes in the bathroom. So very tricky, that one. I'm not a firm believer of a blanket policy of no mobile phone use, particularly in a corporate environment, because they're adults, they're not children. But I think if it is genuinely impacting the team, again, it comes back to that open, honest communication by the line manager saying, can you please stop doing this because the impact is this, and if you don't stop doing it, this will be the impact on you and your employment.
Thank you so much. Love it. I mean, yeah, I definitely see the trickiness of when somebody goes to the bathroom for 20 minutes. What are you going to do? Because, you do not really know what's happening in that bathroom, do you? And you also don't want to know, probably. Anyhow, thank you so much. Christine, yeah, what do you think?
Well, I agree with Vicky, and while you were talking, I thought about it. I think to address the private telephone calls, it's easier than, for example, addressing the smoking periods. People go downstairs out of the building and smoking, because then it's like every hour it's like 5 or 7 or 10 minutes. But if he is or she's really while phoning, disturbing the team, I think it's sort of easy to address. I got complaints from several people that your phone calls are very loud, that they're private, and can you please do this in a silent room or stop this? And ask, why are you doing this? It could be that he's or she's taking care of his sick mother, father, whatever, and has to take care. So you never know what's behind the action. So I would ask what's the reason, without asking, wanting him or she to tell me all the details. But if you have a good relationship to the employee, it should be possible.
Yes, also makes sense. And I think what we have in common here is the transparency element. So I like that. Thank you both so much for joining me for this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. One last question for each of you. If people want to connect with you, where can they best do so? Vicky?
LinkedIn, Vicky Skretowski. Just press S and several other letters afterwards and you'll find me.
And we will, of course, also mention you when we're going to be sharing this episode so people can find you easily. And Christine, where can people connect with you?
Also via LinkedIn. There are several Christine Lutz. But if you see me in a red suit, in a red blazer, that's me.
All right, that is good to know. The red blazer, which I'm wearing actually right now.
Yes.
Funny. All right, thank you everybody for tuning in to today's episode. Once again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. And if you hear the drilling from my neighbors, I am so sorry for that. Life happens sometimes. Thank you so much and have a lovely rest of your days.